Right, there it is. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. My name is Donovan Sadiq, also known as the Inland Empire Informer, also known as the Black Yul Brynner. Uh, it's so sad. A lot of young people don't even know who Yul Brynner is. Academy Award winner, Yul Brynner. Most of us remember him from the great movie, The Magnificent Seven, and The Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston. He played Ramses. Awesome, awesome character. But good morning. It's 8:30. It's November 26th, the day before Thanksgiving. I know I sound terrible. I feel terrible, but we're still drying out from that major storm that passed through. So not much going on there. Got a lot of projects I have to do because I've been letting them sit. It's fall, so the leaves are falling on my desert landscape, and in a desert landscape, if you have like a bunch of rocks, you really don't want the leaves to go in between the rocks because it creates a soil. And then when that soil is created, then you're going to have weeds and stuff coming between the rocks, which is going to make your job harder because now you got to go out there and pull the weeds between the rocks, right? So I've got to get on top of that. And, just take a little rake and, just get the leaves and just get them up as much as I can and, and do the best I can. Benny is still going into the garage, pulling stuff out, doing what he's doing. This is my last dog. This is my last dog. I made a commitment to him. I love him to death, but he's still a puppy, so I got to give him that. Um, Wonder Pup Bell didn't give me nowhere near the problems as a boy dog does. So female mammals to me are more, they're smarter. They know what to do. This male mammal, like most male mammals, like myself, he has an independent streak and he wants to push that boundary. And this dog is willing to risk an ass whipping to get what he wants to do what he wants to do, which kind of reminds me of me when I was a younger person. I'd take the ass whipping. My mom said be in by 10:01. It didn't matter. The way I thought, all right, I'm doomed. Anything 10:01, I'm in trouble. So I might as well go ahead and enjoy myself while I'm at the party and suffer the consequences when I get home because I'm already late. So it's how it was when I was growing up. There was no gray area. You know, my mom didn't care about, oh well, so and so, this happened to so and so, had nothing to do with me. It was either yes or no. There was no maybe. Yes or no. Left or right. That's how we did it. Less confusion for me as a child. And I think a lot of people would be better off if they didn't put the gray area into their lives. But what I want to talk about is holiday madness. I went to the gym last night. Okay, so here's my basic day. I'm volunteering at a hardware store, and currently I've raised $1,800. And that $1,800 is going to our organization, again, to where we are going to help homeless vets, number one, and anybody else that happens to come along. But uh, Air Force Officers Association, our main goal is to deal with the homeless vets. So we've got people that are working at the post office, all this holiday help that is going on. So when you guys see the title, it says Holiday Madness. Holiday Madness isn't just people just shopping with money that they don't have. It's just like people like myself who are retired, and uh, we're going back to get these jobs, to help in the community. And I think that's very, very important. So far I've raised 1,800, and my goal is to work for 7,000, and do what we can for these veterans that are out here. I live in the desert. You guys know, even in the summertime in the desert, um, it gets cold at night. And here it gets cold in the wintertime. It gets cold. It gets to the 30s, and it gets cold out there. And we have a lot of homeless people out here. And we can't wait on government to do what government is supposed to do, right? Because a lot of corruption, a lot of stuff is going on. So, and not shaming anybody. Um, but we need to bring shame back. I do believe that we need to bring shame back. But I've been volunteering at this hardware store. And it's a historic hardware store in my city. It's on Sunnymead Boulevard. It's franchised to Ace, but it's known as Honeymead Hardware. It's been here since I was a little kid. And it's funny to work there because I'm using my mechanical skills, because you guys know I used to be a mechanic, and worked on my house. I upgraded my house and did a lot of things around my house when I retired. So I have that skill. Um, but it's amazing. And for those of you guys that are in the military, that were in the aircraft mechanics or wherever mechanics you were, um, when I was in the Air Force in SAC and you came out of tech school, like the first 3 months, you kind of learn your job a little bit. You kind of get a feel for what your job is going to be. But then they throw you into tool crib. And tool crib is where you assigned, when people came in the morning or whenever your shift was, and they needed their toolboxes, they needed special equipment, they needed, this tool, that tool, this tool. And also you had a McDonnell Douglas tech rep that was in another building, or maybe in a, down the way or whatever, or he probably worked in the office, and he was there, to help in regards to special technical needs that you might not have heard of or didn't really dive deep in. And we'd have to order through Boeing or McDonnell Douglas, and then you would go through that channel. But they would throw you in there for 3 months, right? And you're sitting in there, and it kind of sucks. It was like an office job. And and you learn the different tools. You do this, you do that. Somebody come in and say, "Oh, I need a torque wrench," and you're like, "Okay, what's a torque wrench?" You didn't know what the difference between a torque wrench and a breaker bar is. There's a big difference between those two. Yeah, Bruce. Good morning, Bruce. Yeah, tool crib is a horrible job. It's horrible when you got experience, but when you're first starting, it's a great way to learn the tools. Because I remember when I first went in there was tools I didn't even know. The plumb bob and this and that, and I had heard about it, but I had never seen it. So usually they would stick the young guys right out of A school into the tool crib, and you would learn the different nuts and the different bolts and all this other stuff that you would need. So as I'm at Ace Hardware here, I'm in tool crib, and a lot of the stuff came back to me. And it's funny, I will see people drive. It's to me it's madness, but I understand the mentality, Bruce. You will see a person drive to the hardware store and they say, "I need this bolt." I said, "Well, first thing I ask is, well, what's the project?" And then they tell me the project, and I say, "Oh, well, in some scenarios, I tell them, wouldn't it just be better to buy an all new component? Everything's made in China, so you're doing more work on this end versus this one little screw that you came all this way for in gas. You paid more in gas than what the actual screw actually cost." Yeah, no, it is an insane it is an insane job, because you go in there, Bruce, and you're a guy good with your hands as well. um, there's nuts and bolts everywhere, and if you're a person that doesn't have a mechanical background, you would go into this tool crib and you would totally get lost. But once you understand where everything is kind of at, and then one thing I hate, Bruce, is people will come in there and you have like a little, let's say you have some screws over here, right? And you got the fourth of an inch, or you got the inch and a half, the 2 inch, 3 inch, and so on, right? It gets longer and longer and longer, and you got the different metric and versus the standard. And sometimes, I don't know what's going on with people, but sometimes they'll throw the metric into the standard, or the bolts and that don't go where they're supposed to go, and the threading isn't correct. And so I'm talking to this one customer, and he's a crotchety old guy, and he's like, "Oh, I need this," and I said, "Well, sir, I said, look, I just want to double check, because I don't want you to come back here for a good reason, in a good way, because there's nothing more frustrating as you're doing something, a project that you need to get done, and you got to keep going back and forth to the store. Nobody wants to do that. At least I don't. So I'm putting myself in those people's shoes. I don't want them to come back. So we have this pegboard where you can look at the screw and kind of screw it in there to make sure it's the right size. So if it's an M6, an M4, whatever it is, a standard 1/4, whatever it is, right, to help him out. So I'm trying to tell the guy, hey, do it this way. I said, let me just verify, because I got all the screws. I said, okay, all right. So he comes in, and he's still crouched. I said, sir, let me check. I take the bag of screws from him, and I individually go in there and make sure that, and sure enough, the threading, he had a standard with the metric and whatever. He would have been pissed coming back. So, when you're working in these places, you really got to know what you're doing, and the funniest thing about this job, and I could tell you right now, as a retiree, having been retired for a while, I don't want to work. I don't want to work anymore. I don't want to do it. And I'm not a customer service person. I can do it, but I'm not a customer service person. But I could do it. I just don't want to do it all the time. Because these people will come to you, and this is what I mean by holiday madness, you guys. Give me a second here. This is what I mean by holiday madness. They will come to you, and they have this idea of what they see in their mind. But they can't seem to communicate it to us, right? We're trying to help them out. And I always tell people, well, Lowe's and Home Depot, that isn't a hardware store. That's a big box store. They have hardware stuff in there, but they're not a hardware store. Ace and mom and pop hardware stores are hardware stores, because there's things in there you're not going to get at the big box stores, specific. So the guys will come in, and and one thing that I'm finding is really interesting is the language barrier. Like the Mexican guys will come in there, and they're like, blah, 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 this, this, and I'm looking at them like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. Bruce says, it's a great job if you need to go insane, which would really be good if you're going for your VA benefits. Bruce says, I had a friend that was a jet engine mechanic. My brother's a jet engine mechanic. He had to turn in his tools because he was being transferred to Thailand. The inventory process was nuts. Yeah. My brother's a jet engine mechanic on C-130Js down at Keesler Air Force Base, Mississippi right now. And, he's a classic car guy. He likes doing cars. Yeah, the morons I had to deal with at the water company. But, the funny thing is, Bruce, these people that come in and they're trying to explain to you what they see in their mind. The first thing that I tell them when they show me the piece, I say, do you have the piece with you? No. Did you take a picture of it? Everybody's got a smartphone. You guys out there, listen to me. If you are doing a project and you're going to Lowe's, I don't care what store it is, take a picture of what you are trying to do or that specific part you need. It makes it a lot easier, because we can't visualize what you're trying to communicate. You can see it, but we can't see it. The biggest problem I have, Bruce, is we have a lot of landscapers that come into the company, and it's all about plumbing. It's all about plumbing. Everything is 3/8 and this and that, right? But remember, a lot of homes here on the west side of Moreno Valley are older homes like mine. So I don't have a standard 3/8 coming out of the wall. So you got to get the adapters, and you're constantly doing the adapters for the older homes. And so it's kind of a challenging do that. But the good thing is when you help that customer and you really figure stuff out, it's rewarding. I can say that. Yeah, I do use Google Translate, but of course, Ace doesn't have a really good Wi-Fi. They have Wi-Fi in Ace, but they won't let the employees and the volunteers use it. We have to use our own phone, and I'm not going to burn up my phone, for customer satisfaction. But we do have a couple of people in there that speak Espanol, and my Espanol's poquito, un poco. So I do enough where I can translate what they're saying, especially if they're, showing me a piece. The good thing about the Hispanics in my community, they're really good about bringing the piece in. I had one guy, he brought a whole ventilator in, and he says, I need this little screw right here on the ventilator. And I was like, oh, okay, gotcha. And so we'll go to make it faster for them, get them exactly what they need, and get them on their way. And that's the important thing about holiday madness, right? So, yeah, I just want to tell you guys that. And especially if your significant other or your spouse tells you to do a certain thing, and just do it. Just take the picture. You know, the women are, they don't know what they're doing, but they're good at taking the picture. Okay, the women are good at taking the picture so that we can kind of know what it is that they need. So I can say that. So, but it's interesting. But I can tell you, somebody who's been out of work for a while, I don't want to work. I don't want to work. There's a flight leaving today going to Hawaii on the Marine Corps side of the island on Kanoe Bay. 30 seats. I could have been on that flight. December 1st, there's another flight going to Kanoe Bay, 25 seats. I could have gone on that flight. Yeah, a lot of these guys, they're feminine whipped. Yes, Bruce. Yes, absolutely. And then you'll see them come in with their spouse, and the wife is like, "No, it's this," and he's just like, "Okay, yeah, just." So I end up talking to her, and she's like, "Oh well, I just it's this," and then Bruce, I don't even understand these guys that are mechanically inclined. It's like, okay, you don't take a picture, you can't, I got an idea what you're saying, but you don't know the size of it. First thing I would do is make sure I know, is it a half inch, 3/8? Is it metric? What are we talking about? So I gotta like interview them. How old is the house? Blah 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 blah. And you kind of break it down and stuff. And so people will see you in there, and we're all these nuts and bolts and everything you can imagine, and we can just pull it. Here you go. And you're done. So it's very interesting. I like it because it is rewarding. It gets me out of the house a little bit. I'm doing something in my community I think is very positive. And I understand everybody has things they got to do. But if you're in a position where you could volunteer and raise money to help within the community, please do that. I mean, you've got national disgrace, the biggest national disgrace on the face of the earth, where we've got veterans that are sitting outside in the cold, and it's a national disgrace. A matter of fact, one of my fellow co-workers, he's a veteran, Vietnam veteran, fellow airman, and me and him are just talking, and I find out he isn't getting any VA benefits at all, because he was told something, and and he just said, "Oh, forget it." I understand the frustration with the VA, especially in his era. The VA was really bad to the veterans and stuff. Yeah, Bruce, happy holidays. And I was appalled. I said, oh no, we're going to do something about that. So right now he's out on medical right now, and I told him, while you're out for the week, I want you to write down all of your elements and ailments that you have, and I'm taking you down to the veterans office, and we're going to start your process. If you guys have relatives that are veterans, and maybe some of them are getting benefits, ask them what percentage of benefits are they getting, and make sure that they go through the whole process and appeal, because that VA does make a difference in a lot of people's lives. It made a difference in my life, that's for damn sure. So yeah. So anyway, the holiday madness, and Bruce did the right thing, and he got out of Dodge. He's down in Mexico, and like I said, it won't be long. Yeah. Well, yeah. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of, especially in government, there's a lot of fraud going on in government. Did you guys hear about that? I think it was in Detroit. There was a couple, 30-something years, less than 40 years old, 250 employees. Out of the 250 employees, 6 of them were authorized to work in the United States. And over the last couple of years, these people underbid as contractors. Plumbing, by the way, independent contractors, $74 million in profit that they made as they exploited the illegal immigrants that came here to work and stuff. It's in Detroit. Look that up. But this is what people want here. And then, oh, we got to come in. No, you need to come here correctly so that you're not exploited by these robber barons and these people. It's just amazing to me how people are like, you think you're doing something great, like, oh, everybody, there's no such thing as illegal, but people are exploited. You know, the new Trump rectal thermometer, yeah. But it's just crazy. But speaking of holiday madness, I'm seeing, so when I finish my time at the hardware store, I immediately either I come home to walk Benny, or I go to the gym because it's cold right now. So my arthritis is like, my body's constricting, so I gotta work out to make it work. And so I leave there and I go to Winco. Nothing but people in Winco, right? And I understand tomorrow's Thanksgiving and I get it, but aren't these the same people that were hollering and screaming about government shutdown? They don't have any money. They're being evicted. Personally used by malaria. They're being evicted. This, that. Their EBT's been cut off. Notice you don't hear anybody saying stuff anymore. Why is that? Isn't that strange? Isn't that strange? We don't hear the hollering and the screaming and the complaints anymore. That they were going to starve and all this other stuff. And oh my gosh, this is what's going to happen. Somehow Americans seem to come up with the money they need to enjoy the things that they want to enjoy. They've got money for vacations. They've got money for cars. They've got money for concerts. They've got money for hair, nails, clothes. Yeah, moron voting has consequences. Absolutely. Absolutely it has consequences. But holiday madness. I mean, have we learned anything from all of these test things? PPP loans. People are still dealing with that. When the government is giving away free money, you don't think there's a trick to that? There's something to it? The government giving free money. And I'm talking about not $300 like Bush gave when we were in a surplus. Not the $300 where you can get a pair of tennis shoes. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, no questions asked. Now all of a sudden, they're coming in, locking people up and giving them cases. Have we learned anything? This is why I say it's holiday madness. And it's kind of funny too. I'm at the store yesterday, and a lady recognized me. She goes, "You're the guy that does the podcast, right?" And I said, "Yes, I'm the guy that does the podcast." And she's like, "Oh wow, yeah." She goes, "Keep doing what you're doing." Sometimes I don't know if that's a good thing or it's a bad thing, but you kind of like, you just got to take the good with the bad. Some people that recognize me when I'm out there, they either steer far away from me or they start cursing me, and I don't mind if they're going to do that. But yeah, holiday madness. So as we transition from Thanksgiving to Christmas, now we're going to see the real madness go down. My kids have to have a good Christmas and this, that. Yeah. Yeah, there needs to be an IQ test to be eligible to vote. Exactly. No, I'm with you on that. I mean, if we have standards to join the military, there should be standards to be able to vote and participate in this thing that we call the American democracy republic experiment, representative government. I agree. So anyway, you guys, I just wanted to bring that to you guys' attention. A lot of stuff is going on in my community, particularly. A lot of women are, it's being exposed now who this girl is, Sukiyaki and Saweetie and all these young people. They're selling box, and think about the influence that these people have over these young girls that follow them. My friend Demetra always says, if your parents aren't the most influential persons in your lives and they're following these media stars, you got a problem. That's why I took issue with Cardi B. All right, Bruce, we'll see you later. That's why I took an issue with Cardi B being a married woman, having a child while still being married. Doesn't matter if you're going through the process. You're having a child with a man that has multiple women that are pregnant for him at the same time Cardi B is. So she went from being a wife to a side chick. Think of all the young women that follow Cardi B that think that that type of behavior is okay. But you have these feminazis out here who will co-sign on that. Her body, her choice, this, that. Well, you know what? Your job, your choice. Your EBT, government choice. So on, so on. Do you see how that works when you have that mantra? Now they're screaming, oh, the men. No, the men are fine. The men are fine. We ain't shit, remember? Men ain't shit. You're the one with the house bill, the car bill, the utility bill, the hair, the nails, all of this other stuff. Most men, we're not involved in that. So yeah, just keep that same energy. We ain't shit. So again, holiday madness. I want to get on here and say that a lot of people are. It was funny. I was up late last night because the animals were in my bed, and they're analyzing the Eagles' collapse of that game. And these are Eagle fans that are just upset. I guess it is a cardinal sin to lose to the Dallas Cowboys, and I get it, because in that division, it's the most competitive division to me in the NFL, because any one of those four teams could beat each other at any time because of the rivalries within that division, and they hate each other so much. So as I'm seeing the Philadelphia Eagles crashing out, the fans trying to analyze what happened, I get it. I get the same way. When the Cowboys lost earlier to the Eagles, it was upsetting. But the Dallas Cowboys, my team, we had our Super Bowl Monday night. Or Sunday night. Sorry, Sunday night. That was our Super Bowl. Right there. We defeated the defending champions. So we're 1-1 in the season. So it's just one of those things. But Washington Commanders, as depleted as they are, they can still beat the Dallas Cowboys or the Philadelphia Eagles, given the stars aligning at any time. The Giants, same thing. Same thing. So anyway, you guys, it's going to be an interesting day. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. Happy Thanksgiving, and don't eat too much, gluttony and stuff, and hopefully we will start changing our dynamic of how we're looking at things. A lot of stuff has been exposed, and we have to change our behavior and our mindset if we're going to be moving forward from this point on. Donovan Sadiq, the Black Yul Brynner, you guys have just been informed.